It's only 30 years of Allianz supporting the leagues, and we're not done yet. Only the leagues, only the Allianz leagues.
It was a dramatic weekend of Allianz League action as the final round of football games saw Dublin relegated by Monaghan, while in the hurling, Cork and Waterford progressed to the hurling league final. I'm joined by Michael Verney. Welcome to the Tyrone podcast in association with Allianz. We'll have John Milan on in the second half of the show to discuss all the hurling action, and Kieran Whelan on in a couple of minutes to go over all the football. But first, Michael, it was a very frantic day yesterday of football action. I think that the permutations change every couple of minutes. It was very exciting, though.
Yeah, no, it was hugely exciting, and I suppose like at the moment the league is the best competition in the football in football. Like the championship is exciting towards the latter stages, but the league every week we get a load of drama, and there was drama probably across all four divisions over the weekend, particularly yesterday. I was in O'Connor Park looking at Offaly, and it's very, very close to staying up, which probably would have been against the grain. I thought they were going to be under pressure, and just conceded 2 points in injury time, having fought back from 6 down at the early stages in the second half. So just disappointing. And after the hurlers been beaten the day before, after 2 promotions in 2021, there's 2 relegations in 2022, which is far from ideal. But the footballers are probably the team which came out with more credit. Like they hit 120 yesterday, and John Motton cut a really devastated figure after, because they really threw everything at it and just came up short, unfortunately.
Yeah, it kind of sums up the league, as you say, the 2 promotions last year, and it's so hard then to consolidate that, isn't it? And it's why the league is so dramatic. Sometimes, you get that big breakthrough, but then it can be very difficult to keep up the following year.
Yeah, consolidation. The first year up when you get promoted is the big. Because if you can stay up the first year, chances are you probably would have fancied if Offaly stayed up this year, they'd stay up next year, and they'd get better and better and better. Now they're down Division 3, and they're obviously in the Tailteann Cup as well. And from the hurlers' point of view, Antrim were just the better side on Saturday. They raced through our defence several times, broke the line. They had 3 goals. They probably could have had 5 or 6, only for a few great saves from Stephen Corcoran in goals. So it was 10 points in the wind-up. You have to say, from an Antrim point of view, after being relegated to the McDonagh last year, would have been a disaster for them to be relegated to Division 2 as well. So whereas we're in the McDonagh and we're in Division 2, which is probably it's probably a sign of where we are at the moment. And we're just going to have to keep the foot to the floor, keep building. But it definitely was a disappointing Saturday.
Well, we'll come back to the hurling in part 2 of the show. But for now, it's time for our football chat, and we're delighted to have Kieran Whelan on with us. Kieran, how are things?
Not bad, Will. Not bad. Yourself?
Very good. Thanks. Doing a lot better after that very exciting day of football action yesterday. Before we get to Dublin's relegation and some of the other storylines, what did you make of just the day as it unfolded? The drama, the twists, the turns. You even mentioned the good weather on League Sunday last night, which definitely played its part as well. It was a great advertisement for Gaelic football. Sometimes it can be a bit negative, the discourse around it, but yesterday was a cracking day.
Yeah, it was a great day, and it was the first day as the top of the ground football after a horrific few weeks weather-wise, So, listen, I think it demonstrates the great competition the league is, and there was so much at stake for all the divisions, I suppose, coming into that last day, and it fluctuated. It could have gone anyway. Like if Dublin had a drawn against Monaghan, Kildare were saved. I think it was just one of those crazy days. It's nearly a pity that there's so much happening at the one time, to a certain degree. We could have, we really could have optimized it to a certain aspect. When you look at, there was no Premiership this weekend, and it was international break. There was no rugby this weekend. We could have really had a right festival of football over the weekend, with having maybe 2 divisions on Saturday and 2 divisions on Sunday. I think that was probably something that was missed by the GA. But yeah, absolute. It's great day, great excitement. And I think overall, the league games they've been top drawer. Even the quality of them. I have to say, even given the weather conditions on some of the weeks, the quality of football that is played at the top level now, for me, is just a different level than it ever was before.
Yeah, Michael, just one word on what point Kieran was making there about the optimization of the weekend. Even having maybe the 2 hurling semi-finals on the Saturday to free up the second slot on the Sunday to maybe have Cork Offaly in that slot, or another big game from one of the other divisions, as Kieran said, would have added to that kind of festival atmosphere that was kind of on show as TG Carr were cutting between the games, and with every point almost there was a different outcome.
Yeah, I don't think we're great at optimising it, as Kieran says there. Like, I put it to you this way, I think the weekend the Tailteann Cup kicks off, like we have I think the Champions League finals that weekend. There's a load of championship. So there's a big possibility that that's going to get pushed to one side. We really need to be clever about, and maybe potentially, and it could happen with league action in time, but it should probably definitely happen with championship, is the possibility of Friday night football now to free up, make it an even longer weekend, make sure that we're optimising. Okay, the Tailteann Cup is going to be front and centre on the Saturday, Championship's going to be front and centre on the Sunday. We could play, there's other games that we can play on the Friday night potentially too, but hopefully some lessons will be learned, because as Kieran says, it was brilliant, a real frantic day, but there probably was too much going on the Sunday and maybe not enough going on the Saturday. I think you suggested it last night, Kieran, 2 and 4, maybe divisions 2 and 4 wrap up on the Saturday. They get a massive focus. Like Division 4, there was plenty of drama there and plenty of drama in Division 3, but they probably didn't get enough of a focus, just because naturally the focus is going to shift to Division 1 and even Division 2 as well. So we could probably stagger it a bit better and be smarter about it. But I have to say, in fairness to TG Catter and people who were questioning maybe the red zone kind of style show they did for the hurling the week before, but I definitely think it was a dry run for yesterday, and I think that worked really, really well. And football probably lends itself to that a bit more than hurling, because in hurling, if you switch to another game for 15 seconds, it could be a goal, whereas in football, at least you have a fair idea that if the ball is in defence, it's going to take at least 10 or 15
It's slow and ponderous, Mike. It'd still be in the defence 2 minutes later.
I'm saying that in a nice way, Kieran. But yeah, I thought it was brilliant yesterday. So we could probably just stagger it a bit more. Like, if we want the Tailteann Cup to be given the coverage that we feel it deserves, then we need to be smart about, like, if there's a load of Tailteann Cup games going on at the same time as big Leinster Championship games, big knockout games, it's just not going to get the coverage it deserves. So hopefully we'll learn maybe from yesterday.
Yeah, Kieran, just quickly on the Friday night football idea. It's something that's been thrown around a couple of times over the years. Like, you've obviously played for Dublin for a number of years. Do you think it's a feasible thing? Do you think something you'd like to see explored?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. I'd love to see it. I think Friday night football will be excellent. And there's so many, and even with the compact championship we have now with hurling and football, there is going to be days where, there can only be so much attention given to so many games. And I think there's a few weekends this summer where there's an astronomical amount of games on, and we know that there's obviously an issue between the GPA and the GA at the moment around expenses. And I think it was proposed there a few years ago. I think Carlow were going to play somebody, I don't know, it was Wexford or something on a Friday night, and it became an issue around expense and cost, and because players would have to take time off on the Friday, and that seemed to be the big stumbling block. Now, it doesn't stop, O'Byrne Cup games and McKenna Cup games being played on a Wednesday night when they're local derbies and stuff like that, So again, you'd like to think, I think it would be brilliant for the game, Will, to have a couple of games on a Friday night and give that exposure. And if we really want to promote our games and go all to all, and we'd all love to see it, because we are competing with other sports. I think we have to start spreading them out a bit, so it just generates that more interest, and particularly summer Friday nights would just be brilliant. But I do think there's a cost factor, and I think it's an expense issue with the players that's been the stumbling part in the past.
Just on that, Will, let the players know as far in advance as possible, and you're negating a good few of the issues. It's when they only know maybe 2 to 3 weeks in advance and it's hard to get time off. These fixtures are penciled in, a couple of months in advance. It's very easy, earn the time off, shall we say, from work, and at least you know, and you can build up your hours before then. But it's just when it's done in a haphazard way, it won't work. If it's planned really well in advance, I think it's something that definitely could work.
Yeah, and as Kieran said, like O'Byrne Cup games and McKenna Cup games often feature some of the big inter-county stars in their play during the week as well. But to go back to on-field action,
I was going to say, Will, like as Mick said, you could build something in that, every team, at the start of the year, that you're given a commitment that every team may play one Friday night match, so you're building some sort of cost factor into the benefits that's there already, just to supplement the players, and they know well. So you're not asking players to play regularly on a Friday night, but even if it was every team was to play once on a Friday night, if it's all pre-agreed months in advance, you know what I mean, it could work. It'd have to be local derbies obviously as well, so there's a bit of planning that would be needed in it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan there, though. Get it up and running. To back to on-field action then, Kieran, obviously the big story yesterday was Dublin going down. dramatic fashion with Jack McCarron's late point, albeit Dublin did need to score their own to stay up. With a kind of another day to think about it now, like how damaging do you think that is for the team, for Dessie Farrell, as he does try to get this rebuild up and running? Like, is it a major blow? Is it a catastrophic blow? How are you characterizing it?
It's definitely a blow. Is it something that you can recover from? Yeah, absolutely. I think listen, it's not the end of the world, but it's certainly not ideal. I think if you listen to a lot of the players that have retired in recent years, and a few of them spoke candidly and honest about the challenge of National League Division 1 being more important for them, because they knew going into the Leinster Championship sometimes they weren't going to get a competitive game, and they were cruising through the Leinster Championship. But if you're in Division 2 and you're on that downward curve, the Leinster Championship becomes more competitive. So, like, listen, the league, the level, there's no doubt about it. The top teams, if you want to be competing for Sam later in the year, you do want to have those 7 games against top class opposition to even blood young lads, to see what they're about, see whether they're up for it, develop a bit of character within the team, and that's the part that's the downside, that Dublin will dip down. But listen, they can't complain. Their performance throughout the league was just far too patchy at times, and it looked like they were getting a bit of structure back over the last 2 weeks, but that wasn't prevalent in the first half yesterday. And again, they looked very, very disjointed, particularly from a defensive perspective. And I touched on last, I think they've conceded 11 goals in the league, and that to me has been where their biggest weakness have been. From a forwards perspective, I'd be relatively happy the last couple of weeks. They look like there's a little bit more about them going forward. They're moving it quicker. Okay, Kieran Kilkenny's had a couple of quiet games, but Cormac Costello has looked lively up front. John Bugler has had quite a good league campaign. Con O'Callaghan, obviously, hopefully is going to come back into that equation. So you'd be kind of happy with the progress of their forward play, but it was just defensively, which I think cost them in the end. So I don't think it's a massive blow, but it's not ideal in terms of preparation for Championship, being in Division 2 where Dublin want to be at. So listen, it's going to be interesting. I said last night we could be back in Parnell Park for the football games. The old hurlers could be in Crow Park next year. Who knows?
Yeah, games against like Louth and Limerick, you'd wonder if they will be in Crow Park next year. And Michael, if you're looking at Dublin now, what are the big things do you think they need to work on between now and the Championship? But there's not a huge turnaround time, albeit Dublin in the Leinster Championship will probably have maybe an easier start than maybe, say, Mayo playing Galway, for instance.
Yeah, I suppose the first couple of league games, I thought they were very open, and that that Rian O'Neill goal against Armagh was a classic, a long ball in, one-on-one defending. And I kind of thought, after seeing them in the flesh against Kildare and even seeing them against Tyrone, they tightened up those things. At least it looked a lot more compact. And then you're looking at yesterday, and you're seeing like Mick Fitzsimons left in an acre of space and against Jack McCarron. And with the best will in the world, it doesn't really matter who the defender is. It's almost like kamikaze style defending. You like everything. You're kind of walking a tightrope almost, and it's very easy to obviously fall to that one side. And that happened a couple of times yesterday. Just the lack of cover, I would say, even for Monaghan's goal in the first half. Once that line was broken out around the 45, there didn't seem to be any cover in behind. And I suppose that's a worrying thing, because I thought it was something that was been slowly maybe sorted out throughout the league. It looked like they were tightening up a lot. And then, it kind of came back to haunt them yesterday. Just the goals are really what killed them, regardless of Jack McCarron's free at the end to win it. The goals are what really, really hurt them. And as Kieran said, I think it's 11 goals throughout the league. And it's just not what we're accustomed to, really. And that's probably the most worrying thing. And if anything can be tightened up, come Championship, they'll definitely give themselves a chance to be in around, that All-Ireland final stage. But if they're as open as they are come Championship, they'll be exploited, and they'll be continue to be exploited come summer.
And Kieran, what do you make of the fact that now there's not a single Leinster team in the top flight, with Kildare going down as well? Like, I know the Leinster
first time ever, Will, I think. The first time ever there has been a Division 1 Leinster team in Division 1.
Yeah, it's a poor reflection, Will, on Leinster football, no doubt about it. Now, I think Kildare are quite unlucky. You come out of the league campaign and, okay, Dublin and Kildare go down, but you kind of think Kildare are still on an upward curve in some sort of way. I think we said last night, well, it's Newbridge or nowhere. Newbridge seems to be the only place they can win at the moment. You know what I mean? They can't win anywhere else, and they've just struggled on the road. But I think Kildare, even against Mayo, yesterday, Mayo were very, very good, very effective up front in terms of their execution, but they still kicked some good scores. I think Kildare can still take positives out of this league campaign in terms of the management team they have in. They all seem to be playing well for them. Definitely their forward line is clicking up front, and they're going to go into the Leinster Championship, I still think, with a bit of confidence despite being relegated. And like you'd have Kildare ahead of Meath probably in the pecking order at the moment. So I still think they can take something from it. But from a Leinster football perspective, listen, hugely disappointing. As Michael said, first time ever, no team up there, and it probably, Dublin's dominance over the last decade might not have helped that. Do you know what I mean? To a certain degree, that it was just the Leinster Championship itself as a competition had become nearly defunct, and teams are waving the white flag before they even got to Croke Park, and that might be the impact of Dublin's dominance over the last 10 years. That they're just not at that competitive level where they should be, the teams.
Yeah, because Michael, if you look across the divisions, Dublin and Kildare relegated from Division 1, Offaly relegated from Division 2, with Laois and Wicklow relegated from Division 3, with Longford just about staying up, and then Carlow finishing in the bottom 2 in Division 4, where there is no relegation. So even in the other divisions, teams either getting relegated or featuring quite low down the table. There's very few Leinster counties that can put their hand up and say, I've had a good league. As Kieran said, even Kildare, who probably did, still got relegated.
Yeah, it paints a pretty bleak picture. And I do think what Kieran said there probably does feed into it. It's just going into a Leinster Championship, generally teams are going in demoralised, and have been for the guts of the last decade, knowing that they have no chance of winning their provincial championship. Just say Longford could get a big win over a Louth or an Offaly, and then they're facing into Dublin, and it has been the case, a bit of an annihilation where winning a championship game, they're almost gone back as a result of that, because they've been annihilated in a game, and probably lads questioning why they're committing to county football. So yeah, the picture in Leinster is not good. I just have to say, while it's easy to focus on Dublin being relegated, we have to give massive kudos to Monaghan again.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were absolutely, they were annihilated by Kildare the previous week. Kildare had 24 points on them, which just I don't know when the last time that has happened, but they brought hellfire and brimstone yesterday up in Clones, with it missing, to win a game without starting Conor McManus and been down a few big names, Michal Bannigan and a few more. It was a massive win for them, and their ability to hold on to Division 1 status it's just ridiculous. And even reading Dick Clerkin's column today and just saying he's obviously cousins with Jack McCarron, and I think he called into his house there 4 or 5 weeks ago, and his feet were up on the couch after his appendix out, and then 4 or 5 weeks later he delivers this absolutely sumptuous display. If he hadn't been as hurt by injuries as he has in recent years, this would probably be a regular occurrence come summer. But I just thought he was outstanding. That the lob for the third goal was just it takes a different type of a player to even have that in your frame of mind. I was looking at Cork yesterday, and a couple of times they were blaring down the middle against Offaly, and the ball was hand passed over the bar, and then you have this genius who spots the keeper a couple of yards off his line and is able to dink it over. And it's moments of genius and pieces of genius like this that help keep Monaghan up, and he was just outstanding yesterday.
Yeah, Kieran, because even if you look back to the championship last year, they only lost to Tyrone, I think, by a point in the Ulster final, and it kind of goes under the radar a bit because of what Tyrone did afterwards. But they weren't that far off from beating the All-Ireland champions last year. Have we been underrating them a bit?
I don't know whether they're underrated. Like, you're dead right. Last year they put it well up to Tyrone, and particularly in the first half, they dominated that game against Tyrone, and they were competitive, and they have been very competitive the last few years. I suppose their biggest problem has probably been just throughout this league has been consistency. And against Kildare and against Kerry, they were very flat, they were down. But I remember seeing them against Armagh and saw them against Donegal, and that there's a performance in them, and when they click, they're quite dangerous. And I think they've kind of changed their team slightly in that McInnesby obviously is playing a half back, Conor McCarthy's playing deeper. The two Hughes brothers are playing absolutely great football, and they're pivotal. Like Kieran Hughes kicked 2 absolutely brilliant scores yesterday. And then they haven't been as reliant on McManus, and McCarron has been able to step up. And you've had Michal Bannigan playing on the 40. Gary Mohan looks a bit of a handful in full forward as well. You know what I mean? But he looks, he's a handful, and he creates stuff, and he sucks in defenders, and he's able to lay off ball and stuff like that. So Conor Boyle even coming forward yesterday, kicking a great score. So when they perform, they're as good as anybody. It's just bringing that consistency to their game. I kind of knew going up that, when I suppose it's when they need to perform, they tend to perform to a certain degree, and that's what you admired about them yesterday. I knew it wasn't going to be easy for Dublin going up there, and they deserve massive credit for digging it out and staying up again, similar like they did last year against Galway.
Yeah, what a story it was yesterday. One of the other storylines, Michael, was the league final pairing in Division 1 being set, Kerry versus Mayo. Do you think that they're the two best teams at the moment, do you think, from what you've seen over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, you'd probably have to say they are. Yeah, Mayo have had a brilliant league, and just on a flip point to what Kieran said earlier, so Dublin going back to Division 2 now. A lot of the younger faces that got exposure at Division 1 this year, they're going back to Division 2. You're probably in your comfort zone maybe a bit more, whereas Mayo blooded a load of guys this year. Like, I think the league final is a massive bonus for them with the amount of players that they played throughout the league, and it's just for them to be learning at Division 1 level and then to have another game, that just shows it's just a step forward on what Dublin are going to be at next year in Division 2. You don't really know where you're at come Championship, whereas I'd imagine James Horn is quite happy that he has a squad that are all road tested at Division 1 level going into the Championship. I don't think it's any harm for Kerry to be beaten yesterday, to be honest with you, and for a couple of problems, particularly maybe at the back and with their goalkeeping situation, to actually be exposed a small bit. I think Jack O'Connor is going to have to make a decision on who he wants in goals, and he's going to have to stick with it. I'm just not sure about rotating a goalkeeper, and I know on the training ground they're all practicing they're going through the same types of kick-out routines. They know all the different numbers for what various kick-outs they have, but I just think he needs to probably nail his colours to the mast and probably maybe just stick with that keeper and just have that consistency, even if they make if there's a couple of mistakes. That's probably one area that Kerry need to firm down. And as I said, from a Mayo point of view, I think getting to a league final is a massive bonus for them. And they won a league final in Croke Park a couple of years ago, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't go gung ho to win another one again.
Yeah, Kieran, how are you assessing the two teams? I know the goalkeeping issue is something you and Kevin McStay were touching on last night on RT as well.
Yeah, I think looking at Kerry over the league, and I think obviously they definitely be working on a defensive system, and that's obviously, I think it's an area of focus for Jack O'Connor, because you realise that's maybe where they've been exposed in recent years. I thought they were well able in recent weeks in the poor condition to be able to get 2 or 3 men around the ball and force those turnovers. Conditions were a lot tougher, and you could see they were playing probably a deeper line and waiting for the right time to double up or treble up and get the turnover. I thought yesterday there was maybe a distinct difference. Now, I don't know whether it's the fact that they were already qualified and maybe they were just slightly off it, but I thought Tyrone moved the ball incredibly quick in the first half. By hand and by foot, they kept the ball moving, and they pulled Kerry left, right, and they opened them up a few times. And Tyrone just have very, very comfortable ball players, very comfortable in possession, and when they perform, they're very, very dangerous. And McCurry was on fire inside yesterday, so I think I'd give Kerry a little bit of a pass in that maybe when you don't have something to play for psychologically, you can just maybe affect that performance, and might have had an impact yesterday. Tyrone just looked like there was a little bit more purpose and want in their performance. But I do think the game in Croke Park against Mayo is going to be a good benchmark to see where Kerry are at, because Mayo will bring their high energy game. They have a bit of depth. Horan has plenty of options. He may even, some of the decision making he's made around giving lads game, he may not even show his full hand with Championship in a few weeks. He may try 1 or 2 of these new younger lads in a league final and give them an opportunity. But I think their high energy game now against Kerry, I think has the makings of a great final, and there's no doubt about it. Jack O'Connor will want silverware. He wants to win every game he goes out. So I think Kerry will come at full tilt to try and win it. And it has the makings of a great final. I think, if I look at Mayo throughout the league, probably it's the forward line that they're looking to get an enhancement and improvement. Jack Carney scored 3 points yesterday. Jason Doherty got 5 points after being out injured. With Killian O'Connor and Tommy Conroy had injured, it was looking there for a couple of weeks that Ryan O'Donoghue was looking a little bit lonely in that full forward line, and you were thinking, well, if teams pin him down, where the score is going to come from? But they put up a good score yesterday, despite missing plenty of goal chances in terms of execution. But I think that's where Mayo need to really develop their game, and I think Horan will give one or two of his new guys a shot in Croke Park in the final next week.
Well, just a point on Tyrone. I think Tyrone are laughing now going into the championship. I know they have a very, very difficult draw to try and get through Ulster, but they started the league quite poorly. The gun was put to their head. They had to get big results to stay up. They went down to Killarney, won for the first time since 2003. And I thought, yesterday was by far and away their best performance of this year so far. So while they won't be talked about for the next couple of weeks as we kind of focus on the league final, I think they're in an ideal position. They saved Division 1 status. They were back training late. They're probably only catching up, and I think they're in pretty rude health going into championship, I have to say.
The thing about Tyrone, Michael, and it's interesting this year that I know Derry and Celtic Park, that's probably where they're looking. You expect them to get over for Mana, and that's a big game. And Derry are waiting for them, and Derry, that's going to be a tense encounter. Even if Tyrone were to lose that game with 2 less rounds of qualifiers, it takes as much effort to get back to the quarterfinals as it would to win an Ulster championship. Do you know what I mean? So rather than traditionally you would have had to go down maybe 4 rounds of qualifiers, if you lose that quarterfinal Ulster now, you've only 2 rounds of qualifiers to get back. So that's an interesting dynamic in terms of even the Ulster championship, which is more competitive. The teams that lose will have a great opportunity through 2 rounds to get back in the quarterfinal. The road is a little bit shorter this year.
Yeah, interesting point. I think hasn't really been discussed. Yeah, as you say, it's not as treacherous a path back into the knockout stage of the championship. Just to finish up, Mike, we might look at some of the other divisions. Any team catching your eye, for what they've done over the course of the league? Galway and Roscommon going up in Division 2, Louth and Limerick going up from Division 3 and securing a place in the qualifiers. If they do get knocked out before provincial final, anyone catching your eye there?
Yeah, Roscommon would in particular. I think we're probably maybe a bit harsh on Roscommon because they yo-yo up a bit from Division 1 to Division 2. But I just went back and had a look at, the last 10 to 11 years with them. Like, they started off in Division 3. They were in Division 3 in 2012, 13, 14, got promoted to Division 2 for 2015, got promoted to Division 1. And ever since then, they've flip-flopped, barring staying in Division 1. They stayed in Division 1.
They stayed up once, I think, yeah.
16 and 17, they're in Division 1. And since then, they've flip-flopped. And we're probably very, very harsh in the sense that they're between ranked 7 and 9 within Ireland every year, and that's a massive level of consistency between John Evans' time there, Kevin McStay's time, and Anthony Cunningham's time there. They've been hugely competitive, and they're going to be hugely competitive in around Connacht again. We probably just judged them a bit harshly because they're coming up and down from Division 1, but they deserve massive kudos again. And the other one would definitely be Limerick. Billy Lee getting Limerick up to Division 2. Just that, a couple of years ago, Billy went in a bit of a tirade after they got beaten by Clare in the Munster Championship in 2018 because basically a malfunction behind the scene basically denied him of having a player available to him for championship, and players didn't get meals and expenses. I think the week of championship, he ranked 53 players that didn't come into the squad in 2018. They're totally overshadowed by the great big green monster of the hurlers, and they've just ploughed away behind the scenes, ploughed away, and they're up in Division 2 now. And I know some people are questioning maybe is them getting up to Division 2 and been in the Sam Maguire race next year, is it necessarily a good thing for them? But the way they celebrated on the pitch yesterday definitely would leave you in only one frame of mind, that that's where they want to be, and they're fighting up around the top table now, and it's a huge rise for them. They were only 4 points off Derry in that semi-final last year in Division 3, and now they've backed it up. And then Mickey Hart on the flip side of that as well, I know his contract's been extended, I think, until 2025, and he's totally bought into the underage structures within Louth and has a vision, it looks like, going forward. no point in saying any different. He probably no longer wanted in Tyrone, and they were happy to change, but he was wanted somewhere else. And what he's done with them within 2 seasons, Division 4 to Division 3, Division 3 to Division 2, it's, that's savage progress, really.
Yeah, I want to apologise to Louth when I was going through the Leinster counties earlier. I forgot to mention them. They, of course, are a great league, being promoted into Division 2 and being involved in the qualifiers if they don't reach the provincial final. Kieran, I'll give you the last word then. Any other team that caught your eye from one of the lower divisions that you were either impressed with or disappointed with how they went over the course of the campaign?
It's hard to say, Will, because you don't see a whole lot of the games, so you're really just going on kind of the former results. Obviously, Mick has touched on Limerick and Louth. They're obviously, both of them come from Division 3, usually successful. And from Limerick's perspective, even the draw that they're on, the Munster side of the draw, they've, Clare, Tip, Limerick, that's going to be a great battle, to get to Munster final. Hoping probably you'd expect Kerry will beat Cork. So there's a great opportunity going into championship for the likes of Limerick. If Louth win their first match, I think they've Kildare. And again, they're coming on momentum. That has the potential to be a good championship match if that comes true. So yeah, they're probably the 2 teams, and likewise, Roscommon are under the radar, very effective. I think Derry got a little bit of a hard draw, just the way the fixtures fell. That draw against Roscommon that day hurt them, and then for Galway to put out a weakened team to hand Roscommon probably 2 handy points, that really hurt Derry, I suppose. But that's the look of the draw. You can't blame Galway. If you're through and you're qualified, you have every right to do whatever you want to do in that last match, and they're looking ahead to Mayo. So yeah, Derry will be disappointed. I think that they looked like they were heading for Division 1, and now they're back in Division 2 next year, and you're going to have Meath, Kildare, Dublin, Clare, so it's going to be very competitive Division 2 next year. So they'll feel a little bit aggrieved they didn't get up to the top 8.
Division 2 is always interesting, Will, but next year I think it'll be the most interesting Division 2 of all time, I'd say.
Yeah, this might have been Derry's year to head up. Well, it was a very exciting 7 weeks of league action. We still have the finals to come, but for now, Kieran, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, lads. Take care.
Well, it's time now to turn our attention to the Allianz Hurling League. The final will be between Cork and Waterford after Cork beat Kilkenny and Waterford beat Wexford in the semi-finals over the weekend. We're delighted to have John Milan with us as always. And John, we'll start with your own county, Waterford. A serious statement of intent yesterday, a 19-point win over Wexford. How happy are you today? You must be, the way they played, getting 5 goals, really putting Wexford to the sword. Everything went Waterford's way yesterday.
I'll tell you, Will, I know it's only the league, and I know, look, it's we're in the final now, but it's a good time to be following Waterford hurling. That was an amazing performance yesterday. Now, look, granted, Wexford were well below par, but Waterford were just unbelievable yesterday. A scintillating performance from start to finish. I genuinely thought, expecting going up, I thought, even going into the ground, I said, geez, this is going to be tight. Considering the personnel we were missing, but my God, I mean, they reaffirmed what we knew, is that, and they confirmed that, we have the best squad in the country, and I think both teams that are in the league final, probably have the 2 best squads. And some amazing performances. I thought Ty de Burke was back to his best. Desi Hutchinson was very good. Gleeson, he's just different gravy. The man is just a flawed genius. Look, it was just missing fortunes. It's a pity what happened near the end. Is there room for appeal? I think there is room for appeal. Going on what happened with Peter Casey last year, Peter Casey getting off. So I think, I see no reason why they shouldn't go down that avenue and try and appeal it. And look, I don't want to be. I don't think it's a day for knocking Austin Gleeson. I just think you just have to appreciate how good this lad is. This lad, he puts bums on seats. Will you never mind paying the 20, 25 euro, 30 euro. When you're going watching players like Austin Gleeson, and it was just missing fortunes. It's a pity the way it played out. And I think a bit like Peter Casey last year. I think kids going to watch the game, they go to watch the likes of the Austin Gleesons of this world, the Desi Hutchins, and I think it'll be a big pity if he's to miss out next Saturday night. Now, in saying that, if he is to miss out, I still think we have the tools, the ammunition to still go and win it. Will Stephen Bennett be back? He might come back. Probably fall in there. You know, you look at Caleb Lyons got game time yesterday. Fronty's still to come back. So I think Waterford, they're in a really, really good place. And I just think from a Waterford supporters point of view, just sit back and enjoy this team. Because, you know, I think we're witnessing a special team here. And I think, you know, Liam Cattle has stated that, you know, silverware is what they're after. And he also stated, you know, once they keep putting themselves in that position, getting the finals, that they will eventually get over the line. And we highlighted that last week. And we did touch on in one of the articles that they could break the goal scoring record. I think they're on 19 goals now. And I did predict before the, you know, the start of the league that they could go into the 20 goal ratio, and I wouldn't be surprised if they hit that 20 goal ratio the weekend. I think they'll get more goals the weekend. They have goals on their mind. They scored 5 yesterday. They could have easily gotten 7 or 8. But yeah, look, they went up. They done a professional performance, and look, I think from Wexford's point of view, you get days like that with missing fortunate. And I think, you know, they'll get back on the horse again. But when they reflect, they've had a decent league campaign. I've been there before. You know, when you're not at it, and you come up against a team that are at the peak of their powers. I think this Waterford team now are at the peak of their powers. I think they're ready to do something special. And unfortunately for Wexford, they just came across a juggernaut yesterday. You know.
Yeah, Michael, like what's your take on Waterford? Like, how close do you think they are to Limerick? It's funny because the way Limerick's league campaign went, it almost feels like they weren't even in the league, because the narrative was building around Waterford the whole time and their depth and you know how they're a coming force. You know, how close is that gap at the top, do you think?
Well, the last 3 times they met in the 2020 Munster final. There was 4 between them. They met in the All-Ireland final that year. There was 11. They met in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. It was 11 again, which would suggest that they haven't got any closer. But I think you have to look a bit deeper. If you look last year, they were after playing 4 or 5 weekends in a row. They were probably a spent force after about half an hour of the All-Ireland semi-final, having thrown everything at them in the first quarter. I think Waterford have gotten closer to Limerick, and I think Limerick have fallen back a small bit closer to the pack. So all of a sudden, that 11 points could become, you know, 4 or 5 points, and that gives teams a chance every time they go out. And the squad Waterford have, we haven't seen Jamie Barron yet. We probably won't see him maybe till the early stage of the Munster Championship. Caleb Lyons just back. You know, they put up 520 yesterday without Stephen Bennett, who has put up crazy scores since he was put on the freeze in 2019. He's been just unbelievable for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So the fact that they're going that deep into their reserves and are still able to do what they did yesterday, I think that's probably from John's point of view and Waterford person's point of view, that's probably the most heartwarming thing of it, is that there's different faces standing up. Mikey Kiley at the edge of the square offers them something different that they haven't had before. A big kind of Barnum kind of full forward, 6'1", 6'2", probably a bit more, and a target man and a great foil to Desi Hutchinson as well. So definitely think they've got huge options, and I would agree with John. I think probably Waterford, I do think they have probably the best squad in the country at the moment, and I would say the second best squad is the team they're playing in the league final in Cork. So it's going to be interesting to see. At least they're not playing each other in the first round of the Munster Championship, and I don't think there'll be too much of an element to shadow box, and I think they'll both see the benefits of winning a league title and what that could do for them, not just this year, but over the next couple of years.
Yeah, John, like, who do you think would benefit more from winning on Saturday night, Cork or Waterford?
Oh, yeah, I think both. You know, when you consider Waterford, the last couple of finals. Well, look, they've been in the last 6 or 7 finals now. Not all these players have been involved in all those finals, and I think what they've given to the game over the course of the last possibly 2015, since they won their last league title, and they've given an enormous amount of the game. And I think I think they would probably get the most out of probably win the league title. You know, considering Cork have won a couple of Munster championships over the course of the last couple of years. So yeah, I would think possibly my own county, Waterford. But look, as we've seen before, you know, the last time Cork won the National League was 1998. They actually beat my own county, Waterford, in that game. You know, 12 months later, Waterford, Cork pushed on and won the All-Ireland. So that kind of propelled them onto greater things. And that year alone, I think, you know, was the kickstart, you know, for what came down the road for Waterford. And I think, you know, we're reaping the rewards of probably 98, albeit it's what, 24 years ago. It was the kickstart. And I think, you know, winning a National League title will be massive for either county. But I also think that, you know, there's an awful lot of talk around last week that, you know, the losers of the league final, you know, it would really put them back. I don't buy into that at all. I think, you know, it's been a very, very good league campaign. I think both managers, both Kieran Kingston and Liam Cattle, have used their squads very, very well over the course of the league. And also the fact that the game now has been pushed out to a Saturday night gives the opportunity, you know, for an extra 24 hours of rest. So, you know, it doesn't really affect them going into the following week. You get back into training on Tuesday night. If you're playing on a Sunday, it might affect you going back into a Tuesday. So I think that's going to be beneficial to both teams as well. You know, the fact that the fixture has been moved to Saturday evening.
Just a point on that, Will. I do think that's important. I do think it's increased the stock of the league. It's made it an even more appetizing title to win, just because they'll be able to get, as John says, they'll be able to get back on the horse nearly straight away the Tuesday or Wednesday night after the league final, win, lose or draw. And I think if there was ever any doubt that either of the two teams in the final would go 100% at it, by moving it back a day, I think they've eliminated that. And I expect an absolutely rip-roaring game between the two of them. Like, just on a Wexford point of view, just a couple of things I would like to say. There's obviously a disappointing end to their league, but they've kind of been in this position before. People will be wondering, you know, will they be able to bounce back for Leinster? Like, they've already bounced back from a massive loss earlier on in the year. Nobody expected them to come out and beat Limerick the week after getting hammered by Dublin in the Walsh Cup final when they conceded a massive score. Even in 2017, when they got to the league semi-final, Tip hit them for 5 goals down in Nolan Park again, and they bounced back and, you know, beat Kilkenny for the first time in a long time in the Leinster Championship that year. So I think they're fairly well versed at bouncing back from that type of adversity. And I'd say they've just learned a lot of lessons yesterday. Like, you know, the attacking player on the Waterford point of view just wasn't being met far enough out the pitch. You know, Austin Gleeson had 2 clean shots on goal that there's no way he should have had it. Shane Bennett the same, Jack Prendergast the same. When you see Wexford playing next time, those players will be met 30 yards from goals, I'd say now. They've probably learned a lot of harsh lessons. And listen, at the end of the day, it's much better to learn them in the league than learning them in a championship game that could decide your fate for the rest of the summer. So while they'll be disappointed with yesterday and they'll probably be scratching their heads, you know, I prefer to learn that lesson now than learn it when your season is hanging in the balance.
Yeah, and a tough opening game against Galway, I think, first up in a couple of weeks' time. John, you know, what did you make of that Cork performance then on Saturday night against Kilkenny? You know, as good as Waterford were against Wexford, I think it's fair to say Kilkenny put up a much tougher fight than Wexford did, and Cork had to come from behind. You know, that late Dara Fitzgibbon goal probably winning the game for them ultimately. You know, how impressed were you with how they played?
Yeah, I was down on radio duties there Saturday night. Really enjoyed it. It was a massive crowd there. I think there was 18,000 at the game. Cork was slow out of the blocks, you know, but how they responded in the second half was, you know, great credit to them. And I think, you know, great credit has to go to someone like you know, Conor Lahan. I thought he was magnificent in the second half and really stood up, you know, when Hoggy went off. The next 3 frees he banged over the bar, and one of the first free was actually a difficult free. It was at 70, it was all at 75, 80 yards out, nailed that. But he really stood up, showed leadership qualities. I think that Dara Fitzgibbon, we've touched on it before. I think he's pivotal for Cork. He's in a rich vein of form. I think he makes them tick. You know, probably had a below par performances last year, in both league and championship, but he's really coming back to the form of 2017 and 2018, and I think he's key. And then, you look at the back, I think this Kieran Joyce, he's a big find for Cork. I thought he was brilliant along with Coleman. And again, up front, then you've Alan Conley. They allowed for Hoggy to have an off day. And you think of what they're springing off the bench then. Harnedy came on, had a massive impact. Jack O'Connor and Cal Lan, Tim O'Malley. Probably Darrow O'Leary at fullback probably struggled a small bit, but I still think they possibly should persist with him. I think he's after having a good league campaign fullback, albeit he had one below par performance. I think if they keep chopping and changing at fullback, they have to find a number 3. They have to settle number 3. And I remember when we were playing, we kept chopping and changing number 3. So it'll be interesting to see will they start him fullback Saturday. I think they should, because I think he's had a relatively good league campaign. But all in all, they scored 127. They're really going in the right direction. They're really in a good place. I think Saturday night's game is it's a 50-50 game. It's a really hard one to call. And I think 2 weeks later, I think no matter what happens on Saturday night, I think they're in a good place for what's to come in 2 weeks' time for what's to come against Limerick.
Yeah, Michael, like the first question I asked you was about Waterford closing the gap to Limerick. What about Cork? Like, they played them in the All-Ireland final, and we all know what happened there. Like, do you think they're a lot closer? Obviously, as John said, they play them on Easter Sunday in a very short time.
Yeah, I think they've upped the physical stakes massively. Well, I have to say, like Kilkenny got down and dirty with them on Saturday night, and they were able to get through it. And if anything, they were the ones overpowering Kilkenny at the end of the game. And it wasn't maybe the usual kind of the flashier kind of stuff we'd see from Cork. I think they really got stuck in. They were able to mix that style with the substance, and I think winning a tight game like that, and Kieran Kingston mentioned it after, I think it's huge for them. Like, they've already put a few nagging, maybe psychological things from last year's All-Ireland final to bed already, I would say. Beating Limerick in the league pretty comprehensively, overcoming a big physical Kilkenny challenge the other night. That the one thing is, the physical stakes, when it's really put up to Cork, are they going to stand up? And so far this year, you'd have to say they've passed those 2 tests and passed them really resoundingly. So from their point of view, I think they'd be delighted with the other night. It was interesting, just a comparison. The Cork lads were out in the field after for God knows how long, signing X, Y, and Z, and Liam Cattle had the Waterford boys pulled in off Nolan Park fairly quickly. So he's fairly keen to dilute that hype, I'd say. But it was a great occasion for down in Cork the other night, and I'm sure John saw it firsthand. The influence that can have on the next generation is huge, and I think we do need to, probably, as we mentioned it on the football side of things, we need to exploit that a bit more with giving games that front and centre stage, albeit a Friday night or a Saturday night, or even I remember Offaly playing Limerick in a qualifier on a Thursday night years ago as well. So I think that'll be huge benefit for Cork, and I'm really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that league final. It's essentially the pretenders to Limerick's throne. And it's going to be whoever wins it. There'll just be, the chest will be puffed out a small bit more. They'll be standing a bit taller going into the championship, particularly Cork, who are welcoming Limerick to town for what is their only home game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I think Kieran Kingston was quick enough to mention that the other night, that they'll only have one championship game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So that game is going to be huge for them. But first, they have the game on Saturday night, and I'm expecting an absolutely rip-roaring game. 2 of the most exciting teams in the game at the moment. You'll be expecting goals. You'll be expecting, a really high-scoring game. Should be a belter of a game.
Yeah, and it's ideal for Cork in the fact that they're going to get a game under their belt in Thurles now. In front of a big crowd, which will stand them in good stead going forward for when they do play Tipperary and they do play Clare and Thurles. And I think what was evident yesterday is that I think over the course of the weekend is both Cork and Waterford, they're 2 top of the ground teams. You've seen the conditions all last week. The ground is starting to dry out, and it really suits both Cork and Waterford. Now, what they're saying this week is that it's going to go the opposite. That the colder conditions are going to come in. The sunshine is going to go away for hopefully just a couple of days or maybe a week or so. So yeah, that's gonna have a bit of a bearing on Saturday night's game, is the fact that, you know, it's going to be colder conditions, 7:15. You don't know whether we're going to get rain or anything, so we're possibly not going to have the same conditions as we've been blessed with the last week or two, you know.
Just the last point on Kilkenny. Well, Kilkenny, while defeated the other night, you know, you have to admire what they're bringing to the table, and they're only going to get better come summer. A lot of new faces in there. I thought Mikey Butler was brilliant again the other night. David Blanchfield at times brilliant the other night. Keane Kenny probably maybe ran out of it in the second half. But, you know, if the big problem with Kilkenny in the last 20 or 25 minutes is they couldn't get their hands on the ball from their own puck out, and Cork really, really snuffed them out. While in the first maybe 45 to 50 minutes, they were working short ball out and working it out really, really effectively. I think if they continue to adapt and continue to maybe revolutionise what they're doing, they're going to be bang there in Leinster for, you know, a potential Leinster hat-trick. And if they do that, they're in All-Ireland semi-final. But it definitely looks like TJ Reid not on board yet. Probably going to be under pressure to play the first two games in Leinster. But like, they've definitely not gone away. And they'll be thereabouts in Leinster. And if they get out of Leinster, they won't be a million miles away after that either.
Yeah, well, it's set up to be an absolutely cracking hurling final this Saturday night. But for the moment, John Michael, thanks so much for joining me.
What a bit.
That's all we have time for this week on the Throne in association with Allianz. We will be back next Monday with a show looking back on all the Allianz Football and Hurling League final action. In the meantime, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or listen on independent.ie. So until next time, thanks for listening and goodbye.
It's only 30 years of Allianz supporting the leagues, and we're not done yet. Only the leagues, only the Allianz leagues.